Welcome in, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Go Bills podcast presented by GoBillsPodcast.com. I am your host and founder of the page, Brett McDurphy. Glad to be with you on this Friday evening to talk about the biggest matchup of the week, and it's going to be the Buffalo Bills taking on the Las Vegas Raiders in the Week 2 matchup, and boy, is this going to be a great matchup. The Bills coming off of a heartbreaking loss in overtime to the New York Jets, and now they're going to be at home in front of the wonderful fans in the Bills Mafia, which is going to be an excellent time for the Buffalo Bills. This is a matchup that is going to be the first matchup between quarterbacks Jimmy Garopollo and Josh Allen, and the most memorable matchup that I can remember from this series between the Raiders and the Bills is the matchup between the Bills and the Raiders for the Bills to go to the Super Bowl in 1990. And that game was won by 51-3 to take the Bills to their first Super Bowl down in Tampa. Let's go real quick to the comments on YouTube and Facebook. And the first comment that we have is from John Roberts, and he said, "Go Bills." That is right. Go Bills. It's going to be a fun week, and I cannot wait for Sunday for the Bills to pretty much take control of what they did last week and write off all the demons that you hear from the national media. That's one thing that I'm looking forward to this week. Let's begin talking about the key matchups for the Buffalo Bills and talk about a little bit about what transpired last week between the Bills and the Jets, and let's focus on Josh Allen because that's the biggest topic that we need to talk about. Last week was a matchup that Josh Allen wants to forget and erase from his mind. 4 turnovers overall from Josh Allen in that game against the New York Jets, and those turnovers were very costly at times where the Bills could have won that game, and they should have won that game. Josh Allen is now going to have to come into this game mentally focused and ready to hit all of his receivers out there on the field. If you remember last week, the 4 turnovers came in costly times, but I do think that Buffalo is going to be lights out, focused out there on the field, and I can't wait to see that. On the other side of the ball, you have Jimmy Garoppolo, who last week looked phenomenal out there on the field, 20 for 26 for 200 yards, 2 touchdowns to Jakobi Meyers. But Jakobi Meyers will not be out there this week against the Buffalo Bills after suffering from a concussion. The Bills are going to have to go up against a fierce wide receiver room for the Raiders, and the Raiders are going to have to show that they can throw the ball on this defense of the Buffalo Bills. Last week, the Bills only allowed 140 yards overall to Zach Wilson out there. The biggest person that had the most yards last week for the New York Jets was Garrett Wilson on 5 catches for 34 yards. It's going to be another matchup for the Buffalo Bills against another 17, and I cannot wait for this matchup between Devontae Adams and Tre'Davious White. This matchup is going to be lights out every single time out there on the field. Tre'Davious White locked up Garrett Wilson overall, and he looked really good out there on the field. Even though he did give up that 1 touchdown to Garrett Wilson, which was an incredible play by Garrett Wilson, it looks like we have our all-pro cornerback in Tre'Davious White back, and I cannot wait. Let's go over to YouTube real quick for a comment from the Red, White, and Bills. He said, "What's up, bro?" And, man, what's up, buddy? I cannot wait for this game on Sunday, and I have been ecstatic for this matchup to talk about a lot of things that we're going to see out there on the field. Another key for the Bills is going to be the matchup between Josh Jacobs and the Buffalo Bills defense. And if you remember last week against the New York Jets, the Bills gave up a ton of yards to Breece Hall. And Breece looked pretty good after having that ACL injury, and it's going to be tough in this matchup against Josh Jacobs. But if you remember last week, what Josh Jacobs did out there on the field, 19 carries for 48 yards, and he didn't look like his normal self. He wasn't the same Josh Jacobs that you normally see out there. He did have a ton of short carries overall in that game, and he did not look like himself overall. He looked like a running back that wasn't the same running back that we saw last year in the MVP form of the Josh Jacobs that we wanted to see. Now, if you remember Josh Jacobs last year, he did have a really good season leading the way in rushing yards, but he just looked like he was a little slow out there. Looked like he was trying to get back into the playing shape that he normally plays at, but it's going to be a tough task for the Buffalo Bills. And if the Bills are arm tackling in this game, I will guarantee it is going to be one of the main reasons why the Bills lose this game. So the Bills are going to have to make sure that they're not arm tackling and that they're Josh Jacobs is not giving up a ton of broken tackles, because if that's the case this week, the Bills will end up going 0-2, and that cannot happen for a team that has high expectations to go to the Super Bowl or deep in the playoffs this year. Another matchup that we're looking forward to seeing out there is going to be the matchup between Taron Johnson and Hunter Renfrow, who, if you remember last week, Renfrow didn't have a single ball thrown to him or a single catch overall last week against the Broncos. The Bills are going to have to limit Hunter Renfrow, who is going to have to step up in the place of Jakobi Meyers, who is going to be out with a concussion. And Red, White, and Bills brought up a good question about the matchup between the Bills and the Raiders, and he asked if Jakobi Meyers was going to be out. He will be out with that concussion this week. Let's go over to, I want to bring up one thing real quick, and that is going to be a presentation real quick that I'm going to do on Google Slides that I have. I want to bring up that real quick because I want to talk about the players that are going to be out for this game, and there's going to be a few players that will be out for this game. And let me bring that up real quick. Just bear with me 1 second, guys. There's going to be a few players that are going to be out for this game. We'll start with the Buffalo Bills overall, and the Bills are going to be having Mitch Morse out there. He is full, is expected to play in this game. That's the only injury for the Bills. On the other hand, it is a few injuries for the Raiders. Overall, they will be without Jakobi Meyers and Chandler Jones, who is dealing with a personal issue in this game. There's some type of issue that's going on. I'm going to try and stay out of it. Some type of issue that's going on with the Raiders and Chandler Jones, and hopefully they can fix that because Chandler Jones should be out there on the field. He's an excellent player in this league, and he will surely be missed this week for the Raiders. In terms of players that will play in this game, Jimmy Garopollo with an ankle injury, Devontae Adams with a foot injury, Jermaine Luminor with an ankle injury, Jordan Meredith with a calf injury, DeAndre Carter with a knee injury, and then Trayvon Morig with a thumb injury are all expected to play in this game. Let's go over real quick with another presentation that I want to bring up, and this is the AFC East standings overall for the Buffalo Bills. And the Bills are in last place in the division right now after one game. The Jets are in the lead at 1-0 after the divisional win against the Buffalo Bills. But there's some keys matchups that the Bills are going to have this week, with the Jets facing Dallas this week, and then a matchup between the New England Patriots and the New England Patriots and the Dolphins this week. That's going to be a fun matchup that you're going to see out there as well. And then the Bills have the matchup against the Raiders. So the Bills could move up in the standings quite a bit this week. We will see if that happens too. So that should be a good matchup as well. And then let's go over to the head-to-head matchup between Josh Allen and Jimmy Garoppolo and talk a little bit about that too. Jimmy Garoppolo versus Josh Allen, which is going to be the first matchup that you will see of the year. And these are stats that are reflecting on the 2023 season. The completion percentage between the two players, Garoppolo leads the way at 76.9 completion percentage, but Josh Allen is not too far behind him with a 70.7 completion rate. In terms of passing attempts, Josh Allen leads the way with 41 passing attempts to Jimmy Garoppolo's 26. Passing yards right in there in the middle at 236 for Allen, and then 200 yards on the dot for Jimmy Garoppolo. Passing touchdowns, Jimmy's in the lead with 2, Josh Allen with 1. Interceptions, 1 interception to 3 interceptions for Josh Allen. And let's go over to the comments on on Facebook. Talk about the comments real quick. He said, John Roberts said that he is waiting for the Bills to post their inactive list. I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious about the inactives as well. It's going to be interesting to see if the Bills do have Kaiir Elam inactive again this week. I don't think that that's going to happen, but we will see if that does happen. And then on YouTube, Red, White, and Bill said, we need to win and hope that the Pats win and the Jets lose. And I completely agree with that as well. Let's look at the matchup like we just talked about that's going to be a key to the game, which is the Bills are going to have to stop Josh Jacobs and the run offense of the Jets. Or I'm sorry, of the Raiders. I apologize. I'm still focused on the Jets a little bit, kind of upset about what happened last week, but we're going to be facing the Raiders this week. So let's talk about the Raiders instead of the Jets. So the Bills are going to have to stuff the box on Josh Jacobs, and that's going to be a tough task for the Buffalo Bills to do. But the Bills don't really have to worry about a lot of matchups on the outside for the Raiders, even though you're going to have to factor in Josh Jacobs, who can get the ball in the backfield and be a difference maker in the passing game as well. The Bills are going to have to play this game to stop the run and then force Jimmy Garoppolo to beat them. And if they can do that, that falls right into the strengths of the Buffalo Bills, who have one of the best backfields in the game right now, with guys like Micah Hyde back, as well as having Jordan Poyer and a healthy Tre'Davious White, along with Christian Benford, who looked really good out there last week as well. And he will be back to his same position at the number 2 cornerback position as well. So the Bills are going to have to play this game to their strength, which is stopping the run, and which is not their strength. It's actually their weakness. They're going to have to focus on that this week, and then focus on containing the passing game of Jimmy Garoppolo and the Devontae Adams show that you see out there as well. If the Bills can do that, it'll be really good for them, and they will be able to force some tough passes for Jimmy Garoppolo and the Raiders offense. Let's look at last week for the Buffalo Bills and what they did in the pass rush game. The Bills had a great pass rush last week at a rate of 45%, which is about 1.5 times higher than the average rate for a pressure rate for a pass rush in the NFL. They had a great pass rush at 45%, and they were led by guys like Leonard Floyd, who had 1.5 sacks last week. If he can lead the way this week, along with Greg Russo, who did some really good things when they both did when they were out there on the field. If they can lead the way and get Jimmy Garoppolo to the ground, that will be the best way for the Buffalo Bills to bring home a win. Last week against the Denver Broncos, the Raiders were able to stop the pass rush of the Denver Broncos. Even though the Denver Broncos have a weak pass rush in this league, the Raiders were able to keep Jimmy Garoppolo upright throughout the whole entire game on all 26 of his dropbacks. Now, the Bills did have 5 sacks last week against the Jets, and they faced a pretty good Jets offensive line. And if the Bills are able to get to the quarterback, which I expect them to do this week, then they should be able to force some 3 and outs, as well as some 3rd and long situations for the Raiders, which is going to play right into the strengths of the Buffalo Bills defense. The Bills are on the offensive side are going to have to face a very good pass rusher in Maxx Crosby, and this is a comment from the Red, White, and Bills. He said that Maxx Crosby is going to destroy Spencer Brown. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm not going to say that, but he also said that Groot missed 2 easy sacks that he should have had out there as well. He did miss a couple of sacks. One of them should have been a sack for the Bills, but unfortunately he did miss that sack. But this matchup is going to be one for the Buffalo Bills to stop Spencer Brown. And if you look at this matchup versus the defensive line of the Raiders, they're not as good as the Jets defensive line. And the Jets had a good defensive line with Quinnen Williams, who is a great interior pass rusher in this league, along with guys like John Franklin Myers and Bryce Huff on the other side, along with Quentin Jefferson, who had a sack in the game as well. The Bills are going to be facing a weaker defensive line, and this is an area where the Bills can focus on protecting Josh Allen's right side by having 2 guys go on Maxx Crosby. And if they're able to do that, it's going to be key for the Bills to win this game. The Bills can, in this game, they can get Spencer Brown outside and have some help with Osiris Torrance to be able to protect Josh Allen. So you can double team Maxx Crosby on the outside, have Torrance come over and help in that situation. And then you can have Mitch Morse slide over, cover the defensive tackle inside the interior defensive tackle. And then Connor McGovern can cover the other defensive tackle. And you can have Deion Dawkins cover the other defensive end. Usually the Raiders only bring 4 guys in coverage or in the pass rush, and then they bring 7 guys in coverage. So I don't expect a lot of blitzes in these situations for the Raiders. I apologize, guys. I did have a technical difficulty there where my accidentally hit a button that I shouldn't have, so I apologize for that, guys. But I am back, and you should hear me. If you guys can hear me, just let me know real quick in the comments. I would greatly appreciate that. I apologize for that issue that just happened right there. But back to what I was saying, I lost my train of thought, to be honest with you. But the Jets pass rush did have a 35% pressure rate on the Buffalo Bills. And if the Bills are able to contain this Jets or this Raiders defensive line, then the Bills are going to be able to move the ball deep down the field each and every play. The Bills last week, it seemed like Josh Allen was not his typical self out there. Didn't seem like he was the same player. But one of the bright spots for the Buffalo Bills was they were able to get the ball to Stephon Diggs. A lot of the time, he had 13 targets for overall. He did have 10 catches for 102 yards in that game. And you can expect the Bills to be able to get the ball to Stephon Diggs in this game as well. Now, Josh Allen does need to do a better job of getting the ball to his playmakers around him. He also needs to get the ball to Gabe Davis as well as the DK brothers. The player that was second on the team in terms of targets in the passing game was James Cook. And if he can be a focal point out of the backfield and get some easy catches from Josh Allen, then I think that that'll allow Josh Allen to settle down quite a bit in this game. I'm just reading the comments real quick on Facebook, and John Roberts said that he can hear me, which is great. I do appreciate you, John, for letting me know that you can hear me. But the way that the Bills are going to have to get easy completions for Josh Allen to settle down is going to be a key. As well as I do think that the Bills are going to have to rely on some design runs that'll help Josh Allen to get back to his normal self. And you heard from Ken Dorsey, he said that they took that element out of the Bills playbook. And I do think that they need to bring that back into the playbook because Josh loves to be hit. That's one of the things that drives him out there on the field, is being able to be hit and play the competitor mentality that he does play. You don't want to take too much of the Josh Allen that we saw last year away. And I look at it as the Three Bears situation and the Three Little Bears situation, which is you don't want him to be too cold, you don't want him to be too hot, and you also don't – you want him to play right in that middle of the ground situation. And I felt like the Bills in that first game, they tried to be a little too cold on what Josh Allen was going to do in terms of, you can't run the ball. You can't use this. You can't use that. You got to let Josh Allen be Josh Allen because he's a really good player in this league. He is somebody that can, when he's on, there's nobody that can stop him. But when he's off, he is off and looks like a different version of himself. And you want Josh to be Josh. I agree with everybody that's going to say this. The mistakes is something that hurts Josh Allen, but it's also something that I love about Josh Allen because when he does make mistakes, he owns up to them and he becomes a different player out here in the league. And I do think that he's going to have a bounce back game. If you look at the games where he had 3 or more turnovers in his career, he's 5-0 and bounces back to have over 225 yards per game after a 3 turnover game. So this is another game where he's going to bounce back. He's going up against a Raiders team that does make a lot of mistakes out there and isn't nearly the team that we faced last week in the Jets. Now, all expectations were for the Bills to lose last week with Aaron Rodgers out there, but the Bills caught a break and they had a situation where Aaron Rodgers wasn't out there on the field. He was injured and he ended up tearing his Achilles, and they had Zach Wilson out there. Now, the Bills did make some mistakes. They did do things that they shouldn't have done, made some costly mistakes, but these are correctable mistakes that they can make, and they can have a good team with Josh Allen and the Bills taking on a team that is a little bit weaker, and this should be a game that the Bills take a commanding win in this game. I will give you my score prediction for the game, and I'd like to know in the comments your score predictions for the game. Don't forget to drop some comments in the comment section as well. I do expect the Bills to win this game 45-17. I think it's going to be a big win for the Buffalo Bills in front of a home crowd. 4-touchdown win for the Buffalo Bills. They will make sure that they silence the haters that are out there for the Buffalo Bills. And it's sad to see that Josh is getting so much hate right now because he's an excellent quarterback in this league. And it's one game that he messed up. And Josh is going to win a ton of games. You heard from Shady McCoy. He said it. Josh Allen wins you games. And that's the key to this. He will win you games. He will not make mistakes out there in these situations. And he's going to be a great player this week for the Buffalo Bills. And I do expect him to win AFC Offensive Player of the Week for week 2. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on all social media platforms. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Threads, along with on our website, GoBillsPodcast.com. Click on over to that website where you can find all of our upcoming shows that we will have throughout the week. We'll also have collaborations with guys like the Nickel City Mafia, which is Mike and Jake from the Nickel City Mafia, and Red, White, and Bills as well. That's Sean Kula of the Red, White, and Bills. Also, don't forget to go on over to the Nickel City Mafia tomorrow night where we will have our Red, White, and Ruthless show. If you missed the first episode of that series that we had on the Nickel City Mafia platform, go on over to that show because it was an excellent show between Sean Kula and myself as well. Also, we will be live on the Go Bills podcast again on Sunday at 12:30 p.m. for our pregame show. We'll be talking about the inactives as well as the keys to the game for the Buffalo Bills and how they can win and take home their first win of the year in front of a home crowd in Highmark Stadium. So stay tuned for that show on Sunday at 12:30 p.m. This has been the Go Bills podcast. We will see you next time for another edition of the Go Bills podcast. Until then, Go Bills.